Christ is king, it's where we belong. Stay with the dream, don't lose your way. Right way's the fire that'll light the day. Keep it simple, let the moment arrive. 3-8 trap keeps the hope alive. Hold on tight till the signal's near. Right way's the trail, we're breaking through fear.
Good morning, fellow traders. This is Doug Campbell with Right Way Options, and this is the morning market prep video for October 14th, 2025. Well, I hope everyone had a good rest last night because it looks like we have a little bit of wild day ahead of us with volatility after China put sanctions against U.S. Subsidiaries in South Korea, Hanwha, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, Hanwha Ocean USA, fell sharply. It prevents any Chinese companies from doing business with them. And then, of course, they unveiled a new framework to restrict rare earth exports and expanded its blacklist to of U.S. companies. So we've got another shot fired in the trade war, causing some damage in markets here this morning as we wait for big bank reports. So let's take a peek at what we have going on here overnight. Asian markets slipping last night on China's decisions. We had Australian markets were up $16.60 or 0.19%. But then after that, it was pretty red. Hong Kong fell 448.13, 1.73%. South Korea fell 22.74 or 0.63%. The Nikkei dropped a whopping 1,241.48 or 2.58% last night. We saw India falling 81.85 or 0.32%, and Shanghai fell 24.27 or 0.62% lower overnight. If we take a look at European markets here this morning, red across the board there and decidedly bearish. We have the DAX at this moment down 256. 74 or 0.105%. The FTSE is lower by 32.92, 0.35% lower. And the CAC is falling by 75.54 or 0.95% lower here this morning. If we take a look at U.S. futures are red across the board. At this very moment, we've got Dow futures down 331 points even. They're actually falling 340, just flashed lower. On Dow futures, we have S&P 500 futures down 71.25 and NASDAQ futures down 345.75. So pretty substantial moves here in the market. We're just now getting some of the big bank earnings reports. We'll look at those in just a moment. If we take a look at what's going on other places in the market, interestingly enough, bonds are falling here this morning. We have the 2-year bonds coming in at 3.47%, 10-year bonds down to 4.00%, and the 30-year bonds 4.59% here this morning. As a result, we've got the dollar right now pushing just a little bit higher. We're up 14 cents at this moment. So nice little upside trend in here. Push through this resistance in here. Next upside target, I think, in that would be right up in here on the US dollar, so still pushing to the upside here on that. Now if we take a look at what's happening in gold, well, gold is continuing to respond higher here on this uncertainty. We have gold this morning up at the moment, $26.70 an ounce, $4,159.70 an ounce here on gold. Silver is also moving higher this morning, up 32 cents at $50.74 an ounce here this morning. If we take a look at copper, interestingly enough, copper is falling this morning, falling by 16 cents here at the moment in copper futures. Platinum is also just ever so slightly lower here, only down $1 after a good strong move yesterday. And palladium continuing to push here a bit this morning, up $19.80 or 1.29% higher. If we take a look at what's happening in crypto, this is having major impacts on the crypto markets here this morning. IBIT at this moment down 5,317.60 a coin, or 4.59%. Ether is falling 325.79 or 7.65% lower, and Solana is falling by $13.50, 6.50% this morning. So let's keep an eye on that. Some pretty big moves here in cryptos and red across the board at the moment. Now, if we take a look at what's going on in oil prices, we're also getting a major pullback here in oil this morning. Right now, oil futures are down $1.55 a barrel, $57.95 a barrel here at the moment. Brent crude is continuing to fall as well, down $61.99 a barrel. And natural gas this morning down a nickel here this morning. So keep an eye on the pressures here that we're seeing in the markets. Pretty substantial moves. Let's take a peek. Well, actually, I think that's it. So how about we settle in, let's buckle up, and let's get ready for the Tuesday edition of the Morning Market Prep video. Good morning once again, everyone, and thanks so much for being here. I do truly appreciate it. We've got earnings rolling in this morning, and we'll take a look at those in just a moment. But let's take a look at what we've got going on here in our index charts this morning. Obviously, yesterday we had a good bounce back to the upside, and what I said to the Right Way Options folks yesterday is it's really going to matter how this follows through. If we were to follow through to the upside or follow through to the downside, that's going to be kind of the important measure for today. Well, at the moment, we are gapping lower. We're giving up a big portion of yesterday's gap up move. We're actually below our open here in the diamonds, and we'll want to be watching that closely. If the bears were to continue to have any kind of inspiration here in the day, you could certainly see that push right back down here to retest this area of support. And breaking back down here, as you'll notice, we're already probably just a touch lower than this low over here. So pretty critical how we respond this morning. Will we bounce in here? Will the bears have some energy in here to push us down toward this area of price support? Now, if we take a look at our moving averages in here, you can see we could easily tag that 50-day moving average again, but what would be critical is if we were to break that low. If we were to break that low, we might see a wave of selling that comes into the market. So watch that carefully here on all this uncertainty. Now, if the bulls were able to respond back and shake this thing off, bouncing in around that 50-day moving average, we might see us push back through this low here of yesterday, our open, and see if we can push right on up through there, and then of course trying to stretch back up here to see if we can retest yesterday's high. So watch that carefully in here. A lot of uncertainty in this market this morning. If we take a look at our SPY big gap down here this morning, and once again, if we see those bears continue to push here today, I think there's every reason to believe that we could see a test of Friday's low here in the SPY, pushing back down. And what would be critical, what would really be critical, is if we were to break on lower, testing this next level of price support here in the chart. Now that price level of support is not very strong. You can see there's a stronger area down in here that we'd want to be watching. But if we were to push down into here and break Friday's close, that could really spell some pain for the market. At the moment, as you can see, these two lows right in here were right there testing on that area. So if the bulls can find inspiration here today, then what we'd want to see is that pushback, that bullish pushback up, see if we can break back up into this area of price resistance, and then maybe even start crossing up to fill this gap from yesterday's open. If we were able to do that, then maybe we can press right back up here into this next area of price resistance in the chart. Keeping in mind our 50-day moving average is pretty close. That could provide a little bit of price support in there as well. But if we were to fall below that 50-day moving average, be careful. We could zoom down a little bit if we break that low of Friday. And then if we take a look at our QQQQ, everyone is going to be a little bit disappointed this morning that zoomed or raced back in on the buy the dip move yesterday, assuming that we're just going to tear it back up and go straight back to the highs. There's going to be a lot of pain here this morning for those folks. Pushing back down here sharply with a gap lower. We're not that far away from retesting, as you can see here, the lows of Friday. If the bears continue to push, we could see that push down in here. Now, one thing we didn't do here in the QQQ is we didn't actually break or go below this tail here, actually creating that new low in the QQQ. I do think there is a possibility of that today, that we could see those bears push on through. So watch that carefully. We could get a wave of selling in that area, and that might stretch us on down here toward that next area of price support in the chart. If you take a look at our moving averages in here, that would take us back down toward that 50-day moving average, where we might catch a bit of a bounce in there if those bears were to push on through. Now, if we take a look at the bullish side, if the bulls can shake this off today, and if we could bounce in this area here, then first thing we'd want to do is start pushing back up in here to see if we can retest some of this resistance up here in the chart, price resistance, and then pushing right back up into yesterday's open. And if we can get that done, maybe we can stretch on higher here to test the resistance in the chart, so that we tested yesterday. So watch that carefully. That'd be some pretty big moves, but this market is resilient enough, or has been resilient enough, that that's not out of the question. Now, IWM had a good day yesterday, but again, we're reversing yesterday's move. We broke below yesterday's open, pushing back down. We've got a good area of price support here in the chart. If that holds, then we're probably in pretty good shape. If that holds and we don't break this on down to retest Friday's low, we could certainly see that if the bears really start to push in here. And where it would get critical is if we broke below this area right in here. Would really raise some concerns in the market. Of course, if the bulls have anything to say here, if we were to bounce this back up, well, again, pushing back up into yesterday's open would be a place that we would want to be watching. That's the first step, and then we might see that push on through back up here to retest yesterday's high in the chart. Breaking through there, of course, we're going to be back up here testing that resistance in the chart on the Russell. Once again, if we look at our moving averages in here, if the bears were to really get going in here, if we were to break this on down, I do see the potential that we could test on a little bit of fear, a little bit of panic. We could test that 50-day moving average here in IWM. Let's take a look at our VIX. Now, our VIX yesterday eased back here a bit, but I got to tell you, not as much as you would have expected on such a big move. And that's why I said yesterday that I think it was going to be extremely important how we followed through today. Well, obviously, with what's going on this morning, the bears showing their teeth here just a little bit. We'll want to watch this pretty closely because we could spike this right back up here into this area of resistance in the chart, up there above 20 handles on the VIX. What would be critical, I think, is if we were to break through that area of resistance here and see that VIX pushing up through here, as if we made new lows, recent lows here in the market, we can certainly see that VIX continue to surge to the upside, so watch that carefully. If we take a look at our T2122, unfortunately the big gap up yesterday, the huge buy the dip rally that they were promoting like crazy in the news, you'll want to be watching this closely because those folks are going to feel some pain. They're going to be squealing from the feeling today from this big reversal this morning, and that possibility that because we'd opened such a big space in here, we could easily retest these lows here in T2122 this morning. Now, if the bulls can find inspiration, we can shake all this off, then we have a great big opportunity here for those bulls to push back. So keep an eye on that. But right now, the gap down this morning, watch these lows in the chart. If we take a look at our T2108, the percentage of stocks above the 40-day moving average, well, we had a nice little pop-up yesterday, but once again, not near as much as you would think that we would have had on such a big move in the market. So we'll want to watch this pretty closely right in here. One little bit of resistance in the chart, and I'm guessing we're going to see this break lower here this morning. We've got some support levels down through here that we could test down here around 25 to 20% of the stocks holding above their 40-day moving average. So keep an eye on that. If the bulls can shake this off and push back up, then let's watch this break right in here, and we could see if we could push back up toward that 40% area here in the chart. If we take a look at T2107 percentage of stocks above the 200 had a nice little bounce back yesterday, but again, with such a big move yesterday, not as much as you would think. We did push back up here testing some resistance in the chart. We've got back above 45%, just a little bit there. If the bears action here today could break this back down below that low, and I think there's some good support right in here. I could easily see us testing down here around the 40% area, or maybe even just a little bit lower here in the chart if those bears were to really get going. If the bulls are able to shake this off today based on earnings or other things, perhaps we can reclaim this area up here, push right back up into this resistance in the chart, and maybe push right on through up in here. That'd be a pretty big whipsaw, but the way the market is set up right now, big whipsaws are certainly possible. And our T2101, we did see some breadth follow through here yesterday with that big gap up move here yesterday morning, pushing back up into resistance here in that T2101. Unfortunately, it wasn't all that confident. Okay, I'll say that, because we gapped up here on T21 with a whole bunch of folks chasing into the market, assuming we're going to zoom back higher. And we ended up with a little bit of a fade back here on that breadth. Now, what's going to be critical, I think, today is to see how strong the bears come in here on breadth. If the bears today show us a continued increase in breadth on the bearish side, that could be a problem in here. And remember, this low breadth is what really created these big potential moves here in the market, and that overextension that we saw in our indexes. So we've certainly taken a lot of that froth off of the market here really quick on Friday, and looks like we could revisit those lows. So watch this carefully. If we see this continuing to expand to the upside on this bearish wave, that could be a bit of a problem here. So be careful on T2101. This has been that critical area that I've been warning to stay with the trend until the trend breaks. Well, that occurred, and I continued to suggest really big point moves were possible with the breadth like this, and I still think that's the case today. We can have big whipsaws here today, so plan your risk carefully. Let's take a look at our economic calendar here for today. And our economic calendar, well, we've got just a little bit more going on here on the calendar today. We've got an NFIB small business report that's out already, coming in at 98.8, so a decline. They were looking for it to decline slightly to a 100.5, down from a 100.8, but obviously we slipped a little bit more here in that small business optimism, so not a good sign here for today. We've got Bauman speaking this morning. We've got some bond auctions in here. Most importantly today, Jerome Powell is going to be speaking at 12:20. We've got a 6-week bill auction, and then we've got a couple more Fed speakers here toward the end of the day. As we roll into Wednesday, you'll want to be keeping an eye on mortgage applications in here, an Empire State Manufacturing report. Amiran is going to be speaking on Wednesday, and then a whole series of Fed speak here in the afternoon along with that beige book. So as you're planning forward, just kind of keep those things in mind. Let's take a look at our earnings calendar here for today. And our earnings calendar, well, as you I'm sure you know, we officially kick off earnings season here. So let's run through a few of these. Some of these have reported, some probably have not at this point. Let's take a look. We've got BlackRock that will be reporting today. Keep an eye on that. At the moment, if it has reported, moving just ever so slightly lower here this morning. JP Morgan reporting this morning, a little bit of a spinning top in there so far, and gapping lower from yesterday's big move to the upside here. We've got Goldman Sachs reporting today. They're just kind of floating in there, a little bit of a gap down, but still testing that resistance to the upside. Citibank, another little spinning top in here. trying to break back through resistance in the chart in that downtrend, but watch that closely. We're going to hear from Wells Fargo. Nice little pop there on Wells today, trying to push on through this downtrend break. Keep an eye on this resistance in here. We've got resistance on both sides of that little platform in here, so watch that area here of resistance, see whether we're going to be able to push back through there. So besides the big banks, we're also going to have, and I'm going to run through them all today, even the ones that really aren't probably going to be that big a deal. Domino's popping up here today. Nice little push to the upside, trying to stretch back up through that downtrend. Keep an eye on those resistance levels in here. We've got J&J that reported good this morning. J&J showing a nice little push in here to the upside. A little bullish price action in here. Nice upside trend. Might want to keep an eye on J&J. We're also going to hear from Ericsson, big gap up here. Ericsson Telephone, big push, big move here. So keep an eye on that one today. We've got ACI, Albertsons, reporting here. Not much action in there at the moment. Certainly hasn't changed that downtrend. We've got BCE that will be reporting in here. Keep an eye on that. FBK reporting this morning. Nice little pop up here, a little bullish engulf coming in there on the pre-market, so keep an eye on that. This has been moving in a nice consistent upside trend. If this opens up in here, then I would suggest that possibility, holding on to that support, then we could push on higher. And last but not least, HQTK, which whoops, it's HOTK. I don't think anybody's going to care too much about this, a very small cap, but that's also reporting today. If we take a look at this afternoon, pretty light day here this afternoon. We've got a stock KARO, which I don't think will matter much, 37,000 in shares traded yesterday, not a big deal. EQBK will be reporting this afternoon as well. So keep an eye on that, another regional bank. HWA, let's see, HWC, if I could read correctly. HWC will be reporting this afternoon, and a little tiny guy, NRUC, will also be reporting. So those are your notables for today. How about we take a look at a few stocks that could be setting up for today? But before we do that, everyone, if you could do me that quick favor, if this is the first time you've seen these videos, please click that subscribe button on YouTube, and also click that bell icon when it pops up so you'll be notified every time I post a video. Now I want to remind everyone that I am leaving tomorrow very early in the morning. There will not be a morning market prep tomorrow. I have to get on the road. I'm heading out to, my son is getting married, and I will not be back. So there will not be a morning market prep for Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. And that's also going to include next Monday. So I apologize for that. I'm just not going to have the time while I'm gone to pack up equipment and get the morning market prep out. So I do apologize, but I will be back. I will be back on that following Tuesday, and we'll kick things off here again. So thank you, everyone, for continuing to stick with me while I need to take this little bit of time off. Let's take a look at a few of these stocks that could be setting up for today. Remember, everyone, these are not recommendations to buy or sell any security. You need to do your own due diligence and be very, very careful in this market. One of the things that has been holding up quite well overall is utilities. Utilities are a little bit of a safety play, and also have that major impact that AI is bringing out there. So if you're looking for a little bit of safety today, you might want to drop into this ETF and look through some of these stocks. There are some very good potential stocks in there to be paying attention to. So watch that carefully. On a bearish day like today, we could find a little bit of safety in there. I think I would continue to keep a close eye on anything that generates energy. First Solar has been hanging in here, sliding out toward the trend. It's also getting a little bit of bearish pressure here this morning, but watch that carefully. We could see that opportunity that could push on higher here soon, so keep an eye on that. Take a look at Sunrun. Sunrun had a really good pop yesterday in here, pushing through, so keep an eye on some of those solar stocks. You might also want to be keeping an eye on some of these uranium plays. URA had a beautiful day yesterday, gapping up, little rest, little pullback in here, and I would look for that next opportunity. UUUU also really stretching. I think this needs a little rest now, but keep a close eye on that. Looking pretty good overall in some of these uranium companies. CCJ had a nice pop yesterday. That's looking good. I would keep an eye on that. UROY also that nice opportunity in here. That could be setting up there. So keep an eye on some of those uranium plays. I would also be keeping an eye on some of these coal plays. BTU had a nice pop yesterday. Little resting pattern, broke through. Be careful. This is so elevated in here that make sure you plan that trade carefully and understand the risk here carefully, just in case, because we're so parabolic in that run. I would expect that we could get into more of a rest, but I will not rule out the possibility that we could break through up here initially before we get any kind of rest or pullback in that chart. So keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on some of the defensive sector stocks. Here we had kind of a rough day on Hershey yesterday, pushing back in that chart, but when the markets get a little bit sketchy like this, defensive sector stocks start to pick up. We unload a little bit in some of our other plays, and we can load up into some of these more safety plays. So watch that carefully. Hershey might be one to be paying attention to. That's been holding up pretty well, but a lot of them are still in a terrible state here, so you're going to have to be pretty picky, pretty choosy. I like the way Altria is setting up here, worth paying attention to. Philip Morris trying to come up out of this bottom might be an opportunity there. And I would take a look at, although oops, can't type. Although this is just now starting to come up out of the bottom. CMG, this is a nice little higher low, had a little bit of bullishness in there yesterday. This is in a pattern we call a rounded bottom breakout. So watch that carefully here. If CMG can push on up, it's more of that consumer cyclical area here of the market, but watch that carefully. This has been really beaten down, and one of those places that we might see a little bit of that return to the upside, so keep an eye on that. UPS, this looked like it had that higher low that was coming in. That's failed back down. NIO that was looking like it might be ready to go, that's failed back down. So just watch these pretty carefully. There's a lot of volatility here in the market. One other place to be looking would be over here in TLT as those bonds continue to fall. TLT getting a nice stretch here to the upside, and I would maybe suggest, if we continue to see selling, I'm not suggesting that we will, maybe the big banks will have enough energy to push us right on through to the upside. But watch this carefully here on some of these inverse ETFs. Take a look at Datadog trying to come up here, not Datadog, DOG, trying to come up out of this downtrend here on this inverse ETF. Now this is just a 1-for-1. This isn't the big leveraged ETFs in here, but DOG has that potential. We might be creating that higher low. You could take a look at like SH for the S&P 500. That's trying to hold that higher low. PSQ for the QQQ, that's trying to hold that higher low here this morning, and also RWM for the Russell. So keep an eye on a few of those. You could look at UVXY if you want to get involved in the volatility and futures. That's trying to hold a higher low in here. And you can maybe even take a look at VXX, short-term volatility in here that is certainly spiking up, worth paying attention to. So watch a few of those. If we continue to sell, we might move those, begin to start moving those higher, unless the big bank reports can really shake off everything here in the market. So much uncertainty at the moment with the government continuing to shut down or continuing shut down. I think it's day 14, continuing to extend. No change, at least in anything that I see. So there's a lot of uncertainty here, and you could certainly see how these changes that China is making, the aggressiveness of China, could have major impacts around the market. So with that, everyone, this video's gotten a little bit long, but it's the last one for the week. So I hope you don't mind. You guys take care, be safe, have a wonderful day. And also, while I'm gone, I want to wish you all of the best. Watch out for this volatility. It could be pretty challenging. But I will see you right back here next Tuesday. Y'all take care, be safe, have a wonderful, wonderful day. Talk to you soon, and I wish you all the very best.
Black and white candles, my stars in the dark. Price is my king, got that fire and spark. Rideways my ranch on the trader's trail. Trading with heart where the profits prevail.